Some of you have been asking, what do I do if I think I have mold in my home? Like, how do I test for it? What do I do? So I'll be creating a series of videos actually talking about this, because ultimately none of this has to be that complicated. And fortunately, mold is something that's completely treatable. And a lot of times when we hear information that's a little spooky, it's unnerving to us, it's scary to us. Some people get overwhelmed. And what I tell all of my families, all of the families I work with, is look at this, oddly enough, as actually a really good thing. Because you may have finally found the answer. You may have finally found a solution to this never-ending series of problems that made no sense. And really the best way to look at mold is that it makes absolutely no sense. It causes strange, unexplainable things that make absolutely no sense. Example. People have food allergies, right? You have kids who have peanut allergies, or someone has an egg allergy, or whatever. You've got an allergy to oak, or an allergy to whatever. Those are expected. There are human beings who are allergic to the entire world. When you allergy test them, they react to everything. They're literally allergic to every food under the sun. They're sensitive to everything, and their bodies make reactions to everything. So basically, you can drink water and breathe air and just not do anything else, and you'll be fine. And if you do anything else, you'll fall apart. Mold causes that kind of an illogical reaction. And really, that's the best way to know if there's mold, where something is totally illogical. Chronic fatigue that makes no sense. Weird aches and pains that make no sense. Memory loss that makes no sense. 35-year-old healthy person can't remember anything. Or the kid whose brain has gone through a blender and they're like, literally, they just can't process. These poor kids have such poor executive functioning that they literally cannot process what's going on. And the analogy I give to parents is like, imagine someone poured sludge into your brain and trying to think through sludge. That's what mold Lyme also can do. The other thing that happens is, so you get weird allergy reactions, you get weird immune reactions, and those immune reactions basically cause you to be immune compromised. So people get sick all the time to everything. A little cold goes around, they're sick for like 2 weeks. Or they catch a little cold and all of a sudden they've got pneumonia and bronchitis and the asthma lasts 2 weeks and you end up in the hospital because of the severe asthma reaction over a little cold. Illogical things. And this is where you stand back and you're like, that makes no sense. That makes no sense. Like, yeah, some people get a little bit of asthma. It's not that asthma is impossible. It's not to say all asthma is mold. But when you get these serious, weird scenarios, that you get rid of gluten, you change the diet, not getting better. Or eczema that's head to toe, that is just intense. These are the times that you stay back and, And usually there's one person who's mostly affected, but then as you start asking, hey mom, do you or your husband have anything? Yeah. God, my husband used to be such an athlete, and now he's so tired all the time. Eczema, tired all the time. Yeah, like I used to have a photographic memory, and like 5 years ago, I just started forgetting everything, and I just thought I was getting old. 38-year-old woman. Weird. When you see these kinds of patterns, that's when you start scratching your head to like, could it be? And here's the thing. Here's the thing that is really, 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 really important. 98%, 95% of people who have mold have zero clue that it is there. Like, I've had so many families that I've been the one pestering them to death for like 6 months. Like, you got mold, you got mold, you got mold, you got mold. And then they also hire contractors or inspectors who come out and they're like, oh, I don't see any water damage. Now, if you're in California, you don't see signs of active water damage. Why? Because we haven't had rains in like 50 million years. So yeah, obviously you're not going to see signs of water damage because there's been no water penetration from a leaking window, presuming there's no water leak inside the home. So my point is that it's very easy to miss. in most inspectors, unless you find someone who is different, most inspectors are following the rule of the law. And the rule of the law says, basically, unless you have catastrophic water damage where your ceiling is about to fall down because there's so much water damage and mold, you don't call it mold because you can't sue someone from it. So if you're living in a house and there's a little bit of mold that may be causing someone who's really sensitive to it to have issues, that's not legally binding horrible mold. And most inspectors follow this OSHA guidelines that basically say if there's catastrophic mold that is horrible, then document it, it's legally binding, and you could do legal things with it. We're not in that parameter of legal lawfulness, catastrophe, ceiling falling down. We're in the world of, is there enough toxin in the environment that's causing a health issue to one or two individuals in the home that are genetically vulnerable? Now, all of this being true and whatever, you're like, okay, you sold me. Now what do I do? Easy. There are a few companies that you can use to actually do your own home test. My favorite, one, because it's inexpensive, and two, it's just like, it's kind of cool, is a company called ImmunoLytics. And I'll have this all in the captions. ImmunoLytics sells these little Petri dishes. They're about that big. And you basically buy one, you put it in every room. I also suggest families buying one and like having the AC blast in there. They also sell swabs that you can swab the AC vents. You basically put one in every room, and then they tell you exactly what to do with it. And then after a few days, you look at it and you're like, oh, that's ugly. Oh. You know, if one of them all of a sudden turns into like a hairy fur ball, that's probably not good. A little fleck, no house is clean. And you don't expect your house to be clean. Every house has a little bit of mold. It's all of a sudden when there are like weird variations where one room or most of the rooms are fine and one room has got like 5 times or even 3 times the levels of the other rooms. That's when you start saying, that's kind of strange. And you can actually send these plates for analysis. So the plates are like $5, and then if you want them analyzed, it's like $35. But you send them for analysis, and all of a sudden, if you see higher counts of Aspergillus, Penicillium, Cladosporidium, Stachyboitres, these are all very ugly, toxin-producing molds. If you see that, that's when you're like, that room may not be so kosher. The other thing you can do are these ERMI tests, E-R-M-I. There's several companies out there. There's one called Envirobiomics. Real Time Labs actually sells them. There's a bunch of them. And basically what these companies do is they sell you a little either Swifter or like a little swab kit, whatever. And you go around and you collect dust. And then you take the dust from your house and you send it to the company. And what this company does is basically they take the dust, run it through a machine, and use DNA probes to see if for the amount of dust that you sent, are there exponentially higher amounts of mold than there should be. Every house has mold. If all of a sudden amongst the dust that you sent, there's like gobs of mold spores, they'll come back and say, hey, something funky may be going on. Not that there is. Something funky may be going on, and you should probably get it checked out. And that's when you get these results and say, hey, mold inspector, I think I may have an issue with mold. Can you come and help me figure out where it's coming from? And how you know you've got the right mold inspector is you ask them, like, okay, so what do you do? And if the mold inspector is like, yeah, we just come and do a visual inspection and we check to see if you've got moisture issues, that's the person you probably don't want to talk to. Because those are the guys that are usually just looking for catastrophic amounts. If they come in and they do air sampling and you say, hey, we have someone who is potentially being impacted by the mold, and we would like you to really do a thorough search, do air sampling, and possibly some of them will even do cavity searches. And we've had families where they're like, there's no mold. And then finally someone comes in, they're like, that wall is looking a little funky. Do you mind if I poke a hole and take a sample? And then they poke a hole, take a sample, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, look at that. But all of this starts with this. Think things through. Build your picture. Build your case. And if you're like, yeah, I'm actually kind of concerned because there's something strange going on, and because I'm worried that there's something strange going on, I can do X, Y, or Z tests to get data. Nothing is confirmatory. There is no perfect technology. There's no perfect tool. There's not one thing that's a smoking gun. Every now and then you get like weird plates. You're like, that is bad. Or you do the Urine test and you're like, oh, holy Jesus. I had no idea there was so much mold in this house. One of the other things you can do through a company called Real Time Labs, you can actually do a urine test. The urine test is kind of pricey. It's $400, but you can actually order it yourself, and then you can talk to your doctor about having it analyzed. And I'm not here to diagnose anything. I'm not here to treat anything. I'm not here to do any of that. This is all for information, so let's be clear. But through this company called Real Time Labs, you can actually do a first morning void and then send the urine off to this company. And the night before, to make the test more accurate, you can actually do a sauna or something to basically take your body temperature up, which actually helps purge some of these toxins. And this company basically takes the urine and analyzes it also through certain DNA-based technology for the presence of mold toxins in the urine. And they'll give you a quantification. And if you do this urine test and all of a sudden certain mold toxins are like 5 times, 10 times their reference range, that's when you're like, ugh, that's not good. Everyone has a little bit of mold, so if you expect totally perfect clean urine, you know. My cutoff is at least 2 times above their reference range. So even if they're like, oh, it's here and you're right here, probably not an issue. But if this is going on and you're way out here and you have issues, that's when you need to talk. And that's when then you find the inspector, you find someone who is mold literate. And there's a bunch of docs out there and a bunch of professionals out there that are actually trained and aware and conscious to know how to look for mold, test for mold, treat mold. But all of this, again, starts by becoming suspicious, by becoming aware. And that's what all of these conversations are about, right? Awareness. I'm not here to promote fear. I sure as hell hope I haven't caused any of you to be losing sleep or become paranoid and fearful, because that's not the intention of this at all. It's not the intention of this at all. The intention of all of this is to bring awareness, to bring consciousness, and for us together to start becoming more aware of what we can do to help ourselves and our families and our loved ones be as healthy as possible, because that's what it's all about, right? It's about being as healthy as we can be, being as vibrant as we can be, being as happy as we can be, and especially to see our little people, thrive, to see our little people reach their most optimal state of health. So I hope this has helped. There's going to be more information coming. We're going to have more discussions. And, right now, there's a lot of focus on my part on mold because that's kind of the world that I'm living in. But we're going to be talking about other things as well. So stay tuned and share these videos. Let's bring more awareness around this. All right. Thank you for watching. This is Dr. K. You guys be well.